Today, I want to talk about how you can get your body out of fight, flight, or freeze mode, how you can get your body out of survival mode to support your fertility, so your body feels safe to get pregnant. And I was inspired to create this episode based on a story I posted on social media about how I had a full day of patients. I was recording podcast episodes and I didn't feel depleted at the end of the day. I felt good, I felt grounded, and I felt energized. And this is not always how I would have felt in that scenario. And I got a lot of questions based on that post. So I want to explain how I reset my nervous system, how I changed my nervous system from a place of activation, a place of fear, a place of overwhelm, to a place of feeling good and comfortable and grounded, which is not to say that I'm always perfect, which I will talk about in this episode too, because I'm absolutely not perfect. I have feelings, I have emotions, I have good days, I have bad days, just like everyone else. The difference is I know how to work with those emotions and how to process them now so that they're not affecting my body the way that they used to. And that is my goal for you, is to learn that as well. First, I want to explain that why your nervous system always being on is affecting your fertility. So the best way to really think about it is that when your nervous system is activated, it's like a little battery running in the background, right? And it's draining that battery. And that battery, we can consider it your health, we can consider it your reproductive health. It's draining your reproductive health battery. That's like the best way to put it. Another simple way to understand it is that when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, right, when your nervous system is activated, your body prioritizes survival. So it will increase your heart rate, it will increase your ability to run fast or lift things, and in doing so, it deprioritizes your digestive system. So if you're in fight, flight, or freeze and you're trying to eat food, your body's not properly digesting that food. If your body's not properly digesting that food, your body is not properly absorbing the nutrients from the food that you eat in order to use those nutrients to create usable resources that our body needs for fertility, such as blood and yin and sex hormones and qi and energy. So that's really important. What happens a lot of times is that women get stuck in fight, flight, or freeze so that they're in this like chronic level state of stress almost all day, right? So when you're eating all day, you're in this chronic level of stress and your body is not able to absorb the food that you eat. And that's a problem. So we really want to fix this. If you want to understand more about how stress affects your fertility, you can go back and listen to my episode number 18, where I dive more into that as well. I want to start by sharing with you my story, right? My background. So I've never been a person you would consider stressed. Like most people that have known me my entire life would say I'm a pretty like cool, calm, collected person who's fairly stubborn and has strong opinions, but overall like cool and calm. But I've always been that like underlying stress person. And the problem with that is because it was such like a low level of stress, it took me a long time to realize it was even there, right? We know when we're in high stress situations, it's really a lot harder to distinguish when we're in low stress situations. And my low stress showed up as needing to control things. In my teens and my 20s, that ended up as needing to control the food I ate, control my exercise, control what my body looked like, right? For me, like when it came to food, it showed up as I wouldn't be able to go out to a restaurant without first looking at the menu and deciding what I was going to eat. I would have to know my meals for the whole day. So I would know, like, am I eating bread twice a day? Am I having cheese twice a day? Like everything needed to be planned. So I felt safe about the food that I was eating, right? Same with exercise. Like if I was going out to like a party or eating something that quote unquote was bad, I felt like I would need to exercise to counteract that, right? Like these are all ways of like my disordered eating and my body image showed up in my body, but it is a sense of control. This control also just relate to me just not being able to be spontaneous, right? Like I needed things planned. If a friend asked me to go out to dinner that night and I had planned to stay home on my couch and watch TV, I wasn't able to make that jump. I wasn't able to change plans on a dime. It was really hard for me. And in the same sense, when things didn't work out the way they were planned to, it was devastating for me, right? And when I say devastating, like to the extent that something could be devastating, but like if I was late for an appointment, I'd be really anxious because that was out of my control. If I had, plans with friends one night and someone was sick, like I'd be really upset that my plans changed. It was all these ways of me needing to control the scenarios because fear of what happens if I'm out of control. And then after I graduated from grad school, my master's degree, and I became a mother, stress started to show up really differently. Stress showed up as questioning myself, questioning my knowledge, questioning my ability, right? So I was previously in a career, I worked in marketing before I worked in Chinese medicine, and marketing felt safe to me because it was normalized. And it was something like a lot of people did. Like it was just a normal part of society. So I felt really confident in my job and what I did when I worked in marketing. I felt really good and confident in myself when I worked in marketing. But then when I switched to a career that was a little bit different, right? Chinese medicine, some people might not agree with, or I thought some people would think I'm crazy, you're too woo-woo. That's when my self-esteem issues started to really kick in, right? Like me questioning myself, my knowledge, and my ability. And then that like made me realize that these issues of self-esteem and self-worth were already there. I just had masked them by finding a career that I didn't feel like they were like in the present. All of this to say I'm not a perfect human being and I never have been, and nobody is. And so like I've dealt with stress, I've dealt with worry. I was also like a big warrior. I grew up with a family of warriors. My father is a warrior, right? Like traveling is a worry to my family. My mother often will show her love by like, are you sure? Is that okay? With fear, right? And as a child, we take on these emotions. So all of this to say my body was in a low level state of chronic fight, flight, or freeze for a lot of my life, and I didn't even really notice it. So if you're one of these people like me who didn't notice that your body is in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, or maybe you are noticing it, just take a moment to notice how it shows up in your life, right? Like maybe write a list of like, this is how it shows up. This is what doesn't feel good. It can show up as looping memories, looping thoughts, replaying conversations in your mind, right? All of these areas, it's like your body's in fight, flight, or freeze because it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel good. I want to explain what happens when your body gets stuck in this state of fight, flight, or freeze and why it's happening. It's not that your nervous system is broken. It's not really that your nervous system is messing up. It's that your nervous system is working with the input you've given it and it's stuck in the past. And it's because our brains, our thoughts, and our beliefs are stuck in the past. So when certain things happen in the present moment, our mind takes us out of the present moment and takes us into the past where our body, our nervous system needed to use that fight, flight, or freeze for survival. And to some extent of what we use the term survival, right? I often see women come into my office, their bodies are stuck in fight, flight, or freeze when they grow up in a household where they didn't feel safe to express their emotions, or they grew up in a household with a lot of yelling and arguing, or they grew up in a household with some sort of violence or sexual abuse, right? These are all ways that as children, I want you to picture yourself as a little child, or picture another little child, before you can even talk, ages 1, 2, 3, when you can talk, but we're like sponges, right? And we take on that energy. And so if you're 2 years old and you're in a household where your parents are arguing and screaming, that makes your body want to retreat. It makes you feel not safe because you don't actually understand what's happening in that moment. If you grow up in a household where every time you cry, you're asked like, why are you crying? Don't cry, you shouldn't be crying. You're being taught that it's not safe for you to express your emotions. So every time that you want to express an emotion, it doesn't feel safe to your body. Your body can get stuck for a lot of reasons, but it's usually stuck because of our past experiences. And so what we want to do is we want to take our bodies and minds out of the past, right? In the past where our body doesn't feel safe, and bring them back into the present moment where we are safe, right? We want to rewire our mind, and we'll go into how to do that. First, I want to give you an example because this is an example I see a lot in my practice, but I had a patient who was always trying to achieve more and tied her worth to her achievements to the point that she was burned out. And again, I see this a lot in my practice. This is a common thing that women do. And then in her internal dialogue, right, it takes time to get to this internal dialogue for a lot of people. But after we got to the core of it, her belief is I'm not enough if I'm not achieving, right? If I'm not always doing more than like I'm worthless, what's the point of being here? And she didn't learn this as an adult, right? No one's taught this as an adult. It came from having a closed off mother who was constantly putting her down for not being good enough. And the only way she got praise was through achievement, right? So it's like we're taught that if we achieve, then we're good and we're lovable. When the truth is you're good and lovable just for being yourself. And if no one's ever told you that, I just want to say that again. You are perfect as you are, and you are lovable just for being yourself. So this woman subconsciously learned as a child that the only way to get her mother's approval was through achieving. And as adults, we can acknowledge that we no longer need to please our mother. We no longer need to please our parents. but our body holds that imprint. And so that's what we need to work with. And so how to stop this cycle. So there's lots of tools out there, right? There's acupuncture if it's done properly. And I say that properly because TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, which was created in the 1950s and is actually modernized acupuncture, really does not have the tools to work with this. But if you work with classical Chinese medicine, which is what I practice and works with all different layers of energy in the body, it can really make impactful changes with this. There's other tools such as EDMR. I'm not as familiar with it, but again, like there's more tools out there. There's hypnosis, there's lots of ways to do this. But at the end of the day, our bodies can heal themselves and you can heal yourself, and you actually don't need these tools. So how can you get your body unstuck from the past and bring your body and mind in the present moment to really calm your nervous system and to get your body out of this state of fight, flight, or freeze of survival mode? Our brain is a muscle. It's not literally a muscle. The brain has neuroplasticity and the ability to recognize and form new neural pathways. And so what happens when we tell ourselves a thought and belief over and over again, it becomes comfortable. And our brain and our body continues to go back to that thought and belief because that's what we know. That is what we've learned and what we've created to be true in our mind and our body. Just as true as the grass is green, you might feel just as true that you are not worthy if you're not achieving, right? Because it's been beat into your brain over and over again. What you want to do is change that. And I wanted to start by saying this is a process. It's not like one day or 1 week you're going to do this and you're going to automatically feel better. It happens over time, and it's about consistency and commitment. So the first thing that you need to do is recognize what thought is coming up. So when you feel an emotion, there's always a thought and belief behind that emotion, but most of us don't stop to pause and recognize what that thought and belief is, right? We don't have emotions out of nowhere. We have emotions because we believe something to be true. So recognize that you have an emotion, stop, and then recognize what is that thought. We can't do anything without awareness. So really the first step is awareness of what is going on, right? If I'm in a car and I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going to be late to a meeting, what is my thought? Is my thought that someone's not going to like me if I'm late to that meeting? Is the thought that I'm going to be fired? Is the thought that I'm going to do horribly? Like, what is the thought that's coming up? Now, if there is an emotion attached to that thought, because usually there is, the first thing is you have to allow yourself to feel it. Whenever an emotion is activated, that is activating your nervous system. And what your nervous system does, and it needs to go through this process, right? In the wild, animals will run and then they'll shake. That's their body's process. And so our body's process is we need to feel this emotion. And the feeling the emotion can be yelling, screaming, crying, hitting if you need to. It can be shaking your body if it feels good and it needs to, or it can just be like sitting and feeling uncomfortable. There is so much power getting comfortable, feeling uncomfortable. And this is not something we are taught as children. This is what I'm teaching my children because I think this is probably like the most important life skill, is to allow yourself to feel uncomfortable. These feelings, worry, anxiety, fear, they become so horrible in our bodies because we're scared of them. But when we face them in the face, right, when you face fear in the face, it loses its power. It loses its power and it can't do anything. So get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And when you feel uncomfortable, you allow that emotion to pass. It does not get suppressed in your body, and your body does not need to get stuck. It can move on. And then after you've allowed yourself to feel the feelings, and I want to also note that this doesn't take long. This can take like a minute, honestly. If you really commit to feeling like shit, to feeling uncomfortable, the emotion, the feeling passes really quickly. I want you to just remind yourself what bullshit that thought was, right? So like, what was the thought? The thought was that if I'm late to this meeting, no one's going to like me. And so ask yourself, is this true? And sometimes you might say yes, like, oh, we do have deep ingrained thoughts and beliefs and perspectives into our mind. And perspectives are what we create. I just want to throw that out there so we can always change our perspective. But when they've been ingrained for a long time, we believe a lot of things to be true. And if you believe this to be true still, I want you to keep asking yourself, like, do I know without a doubt that this is true? And the answer is always no at the end of the day. It's always no. And this is what I work with a lot with women in my small group, because this is the stuff that we need help and support on. I really believe that a healing journey needs a community and it needs a team, and we're really not meant to do this alone. But identifying these thoughts and beliefs, feeling safe to express them, to work through them, to really face them, to like shut them down, that can take work and that can take support. And that's what I really love my small group program for. But at the end of the day, you need to remind yourself that this thought is not true, right? And then you need to flip the script to a better believing thought. So everything is our perception. Everything is our reality. So if my belief is I'm late to this meeting, no one will like me. Maybe my belief is if I'm late to this meeting, people will be compassionate about the fact that I was stuck in traffic and really want to be kind to me. There's so many scenarios and there's so many different situations, but at the end of the day, we always have the ability to change our mind. We can't always control what thoughts pop up in our mind, but we can control how we react to them. And we can control how many times we decide to think them, right? So when a thought pops up in your mind, that's like the knife stabbing you. And that's okay. Let the knife stab you, right? That first stab is not going to kill you. But when you keep repeating that, you keep stabbing yourself over and over again, that eventually is going to kill you, right? So allow the thought to come up, allow yourself to recognize it, allow yourself to feel it, and then allow yourself to stop it. And the more you get used to stopping it and putting it down, the less it will start to come up again, right? Because you're retraining your mind. And so let me give you my real life example that really prompted me to make this podcast. I used to get really overwhelmed if I had a busy day at work. So if I had a day where I had 7 patients and I had to record a podcast and I had to create content for social media, and I say had, meaning I want to because it's part of my business, I would feel really overwhelmed with everything that I had to do. And I would get really used to like looking at my whole week on my calendar too. And if my week was busy, that would like really throw me into a state of overwhelm. And my thought would be that like, I have to do too much. I can't handle this. I don't have the energy to do it. It's going to be draining on me. And I would feel the heaviness of that thought, right? And then that heaviness would sit with me. So I would feel drained. And then I'd be rushing. So that would drain me even more. And I wasn't in the present moment, right? Like, and that all that doesn't feel good. What I did is I first started to recognize like when this was happening, right? Okay, I have a busy day. I'm not feeling good. I'm going to allow myself to take a minute and acknowledge that, right? Allow myself to not feel good in that emotion. And then I would come out of it and I would flip it around. I can handle this. I can do this. I have the energy and the strength for this. I've done it before. I'm good at what I do. I don't need to push, right? Like I can just be present. And all I ever have to do is do one thing at a time. But when it comes to overwhelm, and I know this podcast isn't about overwhelm, but overwhelm is a big part of a lot of women's lives. We feel overwhelmed because we feel like we have too much to do. And the truth is there's always going to be more to do. Always, right? You finish one thing, there's always more to do. You're never like finished with life, right? So there's always more to do. But if you just focus on one task at a time, you only ever have one task. The goal is to be really present in everything that you do. So now when I have a busy day and I have 7 patients, I get to record a podcast and I get to create content, right? Notice how I flip that script too of what I get to do versus have to do. I feel really calm because I just go through my day doing the things that I need to do, one thing at a time, being really present. And at the end of the day, I don't feel drained because I didn't let the emotion drain me. It was never the activity draining me, it was the emotion draining me. And so if you take those steps and you really commit to it, I can almost guarantee you it will change the way that you feel in your body. It will change your mind. It will change the way you see the world. And you will feel so much calmer. Being in a state of fight, flight, or freeze is extremely draining on the body, right? So again, this is a process. It takes time. And get support, get help if you need it. This is a big part of what I do in my group program because at the end of the day, our mindset is everything. Our body and mind are connected. They've always been connected. They're always communicating to each other. And one last thing I want to add, one last perspective, is that a lot of times we get into these stress states because we perceive something to be good or bad. And again, everything is perception.